I don't want to weigh between which dead children matter more. I don't speak on Hamas because I'm not a Palestinian.
Their goal is to destroy the Jewish people and to destroy Israel.
We blindfolded a pro-Palestinian and a pro-Israeli, sat them back to back, and had them talk. Can conversation break through the conflict before they see each other?
Part of the reason why I'm pro-Palestinian is because I saw what could only be described as a trauma response, right? I don't get into the Hamas conversation because for me, to be pro-Palestinian is not necessarily to be pro-Hamas. I'm not pro-Hamas.
So are you anti-Hamas?
I don't speak on Hamas. I don't speak on Hamas because I'm not a Palestinian.
But I think it's important to acknowledge this war was started by a terrorist organization and that Hamas is a terrorist organization. And so it's not a trauma response, it's a response to survival.
I'm very, very anti-terrorism. I find terrorism to be cowardice. But I also know that at some moment, there are people in my country who are fighting for my right to exist, my right to live, who are considered terrorists.
As long as we view this conflict as oppressor versus oppressed, we're not going to get anywhere. Depending on the lens through which you view this conflict, you will see two very different things. Israel is obviously the stronger power when it comes to the Gaza Strip, but if you zoom out and you look at the Middle East as a region, and you see that Israel is the size of New Jersey, and it's surrounded by 20 plus Arab countries that want it to be destroyed, and that Iran has created all of these terrorist proxies in all of the neighboring countries to Israel that seek to destroy it, the oppressor versus the oppressed narrative changes. And that's why I don't think that that's a conducive way to talk about this conflict. I do think that it's important to draw a moral line in this war, and that...
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But the problem is the conflict is still happening. People are still dying.
I totally agree with you. I don't think that holding resentment is a way that we can build. But I do think that the mission to destroy a terrorist organization is not an act of resentment, and it's not something that's being taught to Israelis, it's being shown to them. When it says in Hamas's charter that their goal is to destroy the Jewish people and to destroy Israel, I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about what the pro-Israel world believes, and we never wanted this war. We are losing our people every single day as a part of this war. The majority of the soldiers that are fighting against Hamas are men and women between the ages of 18 to 25. There's nothing more than I want than to an end to all of this.
Hearing about these young people who are the ones being used as toy soldiers, we don't want a situation where one horror becomes now weighed against another horror. Which horror was worse?
I don't, sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine.
I also just wanted to say that I don't think that soldiers from Israel are being used. They are people that are going in to defend their country and their people. Most of Israel has PTSD, and everybody knows someone killed as a part of this war, or taken hostage or is missing.
The society is having all of these very triggering and traumatic experiences while also having to defend their country, as you're saying, and incurring more PTSD.
The PTSD is not, it's just a part of both the Jewish story and the Israeli story, because all of us have experienced some form of persecution in our ancestry. I also want to clarify that Israelis do feel safe, and I will tell you that when I go to Israel, I feel much safer on the streets of Tel Aviv than I do in the streets of New York. And it is because the government does everything they can to protect their civilians, and that's why we have things like the Iron Dome that are, I believe, 95% effective in making sure that these rockets that are being sent from Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah don't harm any civilians. This war is a response to an attack by a terrorist organization on Israeli civilians, babies, women. Any other country would do everything that they could to destroy the terrorist organization that did this. You would hope that if your people were taken hostage and you know the conditions that they're in, that your country would do everything that they possibly can to bring them back.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that we're doing that perfectly right now.
Yeah. Can I ask you a follow-up question just tied to that?
Yeah, sure.
What do you feel could result in a situation whereby there is peace on both sides exist and both sides determine how they exist?
I totally appreciate the way that you're moving forward in trying to find a way forward in this. As long as Hamas has control over the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians that live there will never find peace within themselves, because when you're being ruled by a terrorist organization that has no regard for civilian lives, it's impossible for Palestinians to live peacefully and in prosperity. The way forward is for Israelis and Palestinians to humanize each other, to get rid of the terrorist organizations that are both terrorizing their own people and Israelis. Both of these peoples deserve to exist in this land. They're not going anywhere, and we need to find a way for them to coexist.
I would agree with your take on a right to exist for both. In some of your advocacy, what is it that you've been doing? What is it that you've been conveying to people?
Advocacy for Israel's right to exist, Israel's right to defend itself, Israel's right to exist as a Jewish homeland. We need to dispel narratives that say Israel doesn't have a right to exist and doesn't have a right to defend itself. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and because people for thousands and thousands of years have used the Jewish people as a scapegoat, the first iteration of anti-Semitism was about peoplehood. Who are these people? They don't look like us, they're not like us. The second iteration of anti-Semitism was in the religious form, of Christians saying that, Jews drink Christian babies' blood libel. The third iteration of anti-Semitism was during the Holocaust, which was based on race, and that Jews were an inferior race. The fourth iteration of anti-Semitism right now is anti-Zionism, not wanting us to exist or not wanting us to have the right to self-determine in our native homeland. We tend to focus on each other's differences rather than our commonalities.
I'm glad that you're taking into account some of the narrative that's gotten out into the world, because it's the saying that they like to say that if it's eye for an eye, then the whole world goes blind. As South Africans, we had to coexist with people that othered us for decades, and we continue to have those tensions. And as young people, we're constantly told by responsible elders about the danger of responding to hate with hate. When I start to see people dispelling the Holocaust, writing hateful comments about Jewish people because of the education that I have and because of the history that I come from, I'm very hyper alert to things like that. As a Black South African, I'm hyper alert to those microaggressions, because as someone who's spoken to a survivor, looked at the number tattooed on her arm, her whole family was on the train. She lived because she jumped and she rolled off of a moving train. And so that story stuck with me. I feel sorrow that you went through that, because sometimes people don't understand when you have a homeland, and how no matter where you are in the world, it'll always touch you. And it'll be very personal to you. Watching the public discourse and people who are not actually impacted hoy out a lot of very problematic sentiments, and also looking at it as a football game instead of people's lives. There are Israelis who have never in their life harmed another soul. So you can't push hate onto Israelis and then push hate onto Palestinians without understanding that there are people who are actually impacted and inside of that conflict, who are relying on all of us to have responsible conversations to have them resolve the conflicts.
Can I have you guys turn around?
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Tessa. In order to move forward, both people need to see each other and understand that the elimination of either people is not going to happen. This land is very sacred to many people, and it's important to deal with it with care.
Yes, you're the custodians of it.
Yeah.
Every time I see what's happening, I'm constantly thinking about that responsibility as the custodians. And that's when I say that it's very challenging and it's very difficult and painful. It's really important when people are having these conversations to understand impacted people, and how those people, when they're having the conversation, are not having it like they're watching the Knicks and the Nets. What's the score? It's not a score. These are people's lives.
Yeah,
and
they don't have any stake in it.
They don't have, and there's a tomorrow that you have to be able to feel really proud and continue to feel proud to be Jewish, and to feel safe to be Jewish, because at the end of the day, we do know that there are people who are looking for any reason whatsoever to hate you for being Jewish, because they just hate Jewish people, just like people just hate Black people. So that is where the conversation for me, I decided I wanted to do this, because I saw that this was getting very irresponsible, and the people who hate all of us are getting really excited about all of this and looking for opportunities to do really ugly things that then completely deviate from the entire purpose of what we're trying to rectify. When we say that there should be a two-state solution, people should be allowed to have sovereignty, people should be allowed to believe what they believe, and then people should stop killing each other.
You give me a lot of hope that our communities are capable of working with each other.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I was able to speak with you today.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.